Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Butcherbird Presents once again. Excuse us for being a couple minutes late this morning as we were running around literally building this from scratch. We are talking this morning with Steven Moreno, cinematographer. I got that right this time, right?
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, we're talking this morning with Steven Moreno, cinematographer, about effectiveness in the digital space. Remember, if you haven't done it yet, please go like us on our Facebook page at Butcherbird Studios. Speaking of digital space, so effectiveness within the digital space, I'm setting this up so that we can really set expectations for what Butcherbird Presents is going to be over the next couple of months. Because honestly, if people have to sit there and watch you and me talk and chat, and we're going to get super chatty, I'm sure. Watch us chat.
You especially.
I get chatty. Watch us chat for the next couple of months, and we're the only people we're talking to. People will get very bored with me. Maybe not with you.
Not so much with you.
Not so much with you. But we're going to open these conversations up to include a bunch of different people, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Who would you like to talk to?
There's a lot of interesting gear that's emerging these days, and a lot of interesting voices in film. And I think that we could have guests that a friend that developing a new set of anamorphic lenses that we were able to play with on a music video shoot recently. Dan Caine.
Dan Caine, yeah.
Also, there's some great voices in film and directors and cinematographers that we work with all the time that I think would be really interesting to get their point of view on being a filmmaker right now.
So we have the advantage of coming of age during the last 10 years as filmmakers, cinematographers, storytellers, as much as that's bandied about. One of the things that I love is the fact that with the new digital space, you don't have to ask permission as much.
Right.
You know, back in the day, it was really hard to get your hands on equipment because
everything was expensive, and like all the good stuff was like film, and shooting on film is very expensive and very super technical.
The bar to entry was very high,
without a lot of room for error,
right?
And a lot of math.
A lot of math. So you as a cinematographer and director, what does it mean being effective within the digital space for you?
Well, as you were starting to address the last decade, the emergence of tools in the last decade, YouTube and Vimeo coinciding with DSLRs that could shoot really high-end video that was already compressed for web with large sensors that gave us a shallow depth of field, creating these really cinematic images. That happened as everything became cheaper, editing suites became cheaper. All of the tools that were once like way out of the reach of young filmmakers all of a sudden became like within our reach. And
I remember my first camera. My first camera within the digital space was the Canon
XL1, and that was actually my first camera as well. It was the XL1S.
Yeah,
it was that S that really mattered.
Looked like a camera,
it really
right?
Did. I remember the first time I saw someone operating an XL1, I was just like, whoa, that's like awesome.
Cool.
Right?
It's
on your shoulder.
And since then with Canon doing their DSLR support, and then really coinciding with that, the platforms to put this stuff out there.
Right. And it's really, it's a little bit, it's a golden age. And and I see like younger filmmakers creating better work. It's raised the bar. Go peruse YouTube, peruse Vimeo, look at film festivals.
Right.
Like it's all of a sudden like being a filmmaker is like a reachable, achievable career path, where I think that when we were youngsters, it was like more of a dream. Now it's a reality. Now it's a thing.
Right.
And it doesn't require, like, film school is great and it suits certain people for sure. But I think that film school 20 years ago and film school now maybe not as necessary.
Undeniable plug right here. One of my favorite websites out there is nofilmschool.com. I direct people all the time. My brother teaches on the East Coast. He's a professor of English at UNC Chapel Hill, and he has a very eclectic program that he's developed that actually includes a little bit of filmmaking in it. And he was looking for resources. You know, what camera should I buy? What sound equipment should I buy? What should I tell my students that they need to start working with? And one of the places I told them to go to was to go to No Film School, because they like talk about it all the time.
Everything, and the resources there on that site, you know, aren't just like how to use this camera, how to use this, like, or what this lens does. It's more like creative storytelling, and it leads you into tutorials and essays and interviews that really span like all aspects of cinema, which is another interesting sort of topic. Is filmmaking is not just technical, you know, it's also creative.
Sure.
You know,
well, you know, but back to our overall overarching goal here, which is for us here at Butcherbird Studios to talk about effectiveness within the digital space.
Right.
You know, when you go to places like that, one of the things that I think is it's a personal opinion of mine is jack of all trades is not necessarily a bad thing nowadays.
For sure.
So when we first started getting started and we kind of planted the flag and started our company, people would come to us all the time and ask us, what do you do? You need to do this thing. You need to do commercials, or you need to do film, or you need to do TV. And it's this one thing. Now that has opened up, right? People are looking to be guided in the digital medium, which is a much broader thing, which with a much more democratic kind of egalitarian aspect to it, which is a lot of people have access to it.
Yeah.
And being pigeonholed into we only do one thing is actually now not necessarily a good thing.
Right.
And we dovetail. We work really hard on this end, dovetailing with the YouTubers who may be working outside of, you know, their parents' basement or whatever. Coming just above that, bringing a professional sensibility to creative storytelling within the digital space, all the way up into feature film and television.
And I think it's great, and it's important that you guys, and we as a company, focus on that sort of like that broad scope of abilities and skill sets. And I think individually, it's also very important.
Right.
I think that a director, you know, there's a saying, I'm stealing this from somebody, but it's like...
Probably me.
Probably, most likely. That a director is like the second best at everything on set, and I think that's a very true thing. I think that a director should have a DP, a cinematographer, that's a better cinematographer than them, but they should be second best, because they should have enough knowledge of that world. And I think a director should have an amazing editor, the best editor in the room, but director being second best, because he should have, you know, the second best grasp on editing, second best actor on set, second best writer on set. So he's choosing, you know, a group of individuals to surround himself with that are a little bit better than him, but his grasp of things, you know, are still broad. And I think that broadness is a great and important thing, both as a company and as individuals.
Yeah, I work daily at educating myself with all aspects of what we do professionally. So whether that be, you know, how to throw up a C-stand and flag correctly, to you know, what are the best codecs to deliver, you know, within, like, you know, Vimeo versus YouTube, and the best compression settings. Every day I'm getting an education on a broad level. And I remember
it's
when
important to keep learning. Always keep learning. You know?
I remember when I was a young chap, younger at least to when I was now, and I was coming up with my first jobs working as a PA at Nickelodeon. And I quickly learned that for me, the smartest guy on set, the one that I really wanted to talk to, was the director of photography. For the show that I was on, it was Carlos Gonzalez. So Carlos, shout out to you and your education that you gave to me very early in my career. I loved talking to him, because there wasn't anything that he didn't know about and wasn't passionate about. And it was amazing just to get to chat with him. For you, effectiveness within the digital space, what does that mean? Mentorship, broadening your team, creating a deep bench. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think these are all good questions. I think that my personal journey, I think one thing I've learned is that, you know, our journeys are all unique. You know, there's no I mean, maybe there's a finish line, but it's like the path to get there is equally as important, and it's filled up with curves and twists and turns, and there's no, I don't know, maybe there's a direct route. I'm not on it, and we've all meandered, and on this journey, we're learning, and we continue to learn. And I try to be grateful for that path I'm on, and I try to surround myself with people that are better than me, people that I can learn from, people that I can collaborate with. And I think I try to stay on top of like the tech, which is like always changing, ever evolving. I think I try to make my work more personal, more inspiring. I try to be patient, because I know that as a filmmaker, like I think, like the lessons you learn in life are the tools that give you a voice and let you be a storyteller, whether you're a director, writer, an editor, a producer, a cinematographer, an actor, maybe especially. And I think that I try to really like be patient and know that every year I'm going to get better. Every year my work is going to be more intuitive. It's going to be prettier. It's going to serve the story better, right. And I think I always try to serve the story,
For me, when I think about getting better, I think about kind of two aspects. I think about tech and technique. Mm-hmm. And it's an interesting way of looking at the dichotomy of, listen, there's always going to be new tech, hopefully. And in that, cameras are evolving, lighting is evolving.
Absolutely.
You go to NAB or Cinegear or any of the different expos that they have around, and there's always this ooh, wow, coolness of like the newest toys,
the new
that are
LED
out,
lights,
which are great.
Yeah.
But then there's the stuff, the knowledge in your own personal toolbox of the techniques of, the little things that bring quality to the projects that you're doing.
Right.
Whether it's, you're setting up, you are setting up a couple of 2K scoops that are blasting through muslin, and we don't want the spill to come through. So how do you flag that spill, And, this works pretty well, but the technique of just tucking that flag up underneath.
Right.
And I watched you educating a young grip this weekend, and it was really fun to watch you, because I've watched your progression, your professional progression from somebody that was completely on the absorbing end. You were just taking in as much information as you could, to now you're in a place where you're squeezing little bits of knowledge out to people.
Thank
it was
you.
Super exciting.
Awesome,
Thank you. Super exciting.
Thank you very much.
Do you think I don't watch these things?
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I think, speaking on that, I think that like, again, it's back to the patience and the learning and knowing that every 6 months, every year you're going to get better. And along the way you pick up tricks. You start to learn that like, okay, if I flag the wall, like it's going to make my subject pop. If I control the light, and you steal. Like, I watch movies, I watch shows now, and I unfortunately feel like I don't get a lot of time to like, I watch movies, but not as many like series. But whenever I watch them, I find myself, I can still enjoy them. I could still be a fan and enjoy a show or a movie, but I'm also like picking apart the lighting, the shots, the sequence. How are they putting these shots together? And like the nuance of light starts to become more and more familiar to me. And I start to be able to kind of guess like, oh, I think I know how they might have done that, or how I would try to make something look like that. And I try to bring that into my work. And it's, it's becoming almost like habitual. It's like a subconscious thing that I'm starting to do. And you absorb other people's tricks. I work with other DPs that are better than I am, and I'm stealing their tricks, and we steal each other's tricks, and we pass them off, and we learn online. Right. And all of these things, come together and help us kind of move forward and grow. And you look back to where you were a few years ago, and you're like, oh wow. And you watch some of your work from then, and you're like embarrassed. And that's okay. And that's okay.
You just look at where the progression is, and there are like shows. I mean, we could, I'm sure, digress into a Game of Thrones fest on this, all the way from, the writing and where they may be going next, like whether or not Catelyn Stark is coming back, or, where's Arya's wolf? Where's Arya's wolf? I would love to just do a whole fan show on stuff like that, to like the love fest that I have for the way that show looks. I'm constantly like, I'm revisiting I'm revisiting the series now because I've seen it all and I don't have to put a lot of thought into it. You know, with how.
Are you going back to one?
Busy. I went back to one.
How far are you?
I'm like halfway through.
Wow, that's amazing.
I'm not quite to the red wedding yet, but it's really interesting because now I am paying more attention to the craft that they put in. I was so wrapped up in the story.
And there's so many characters in the beginning. You're all trying to
love it.
grasp everything, and you know.
But now I'm paying more attention to the craft and just how lovely that show.
It is an amazing show,
and it's cut. You know, the editing, there's so much that goes into that particular show, and I know all shows that I love it. I would love to just kind of get on set and be a fly on the wall on those things.
It's amazing. Yeah, I've read some behind the scenes stuff about how they're lighting some stuff. And, you know, a lot of like candlelight, augmented and natural, and like to throw back to your feature that we shot last summer, Better Off Zed.
Yeah.
I mean, I think like, you know, in a very sort of like humble way, we're like, let's try to emulate Game of Thrones.
Let's do that. And I think we were effective.
Yeah, I think we were. I think like taking it out of that sort of fantasy world and into like a house, you know, in modern, you know, it's a big change, but I think the principles we tried to sort of, the aesthetic we tried to sort of adhere to as much as possible.
Sure. I think that also, again, bringing it back to effectiveness within the digital space as our overarching topic here, one of the things that I know that we try to do is work efficiently. Okay, and so I know these big shows that people are on, they have a lot of time and a lot of hands that we don't necessarily get to work with, and people that are in our, I don't know how you would say, our strata, I guess, we're not always afforded those things as a luxury. Often we're 2 to 3 hands down of where we should be. Often we're 2 to 3 hours down of the time allotment that we should have, honestly, for what we're trying to achieve. And so we go in and plan on a level that I don't think a lot of people appreciate the forethought that goes in.
It's the measure twice, cut once philosophy, like brought into filmmaking, I think. 100%. Is what we try to stay true to. And you know, you don't always have the time or the resources to do that, but I think that's a very important thing. It's like, have a plan. You know, it can go astray. It can go
often does.
It can go haywire, you know, which it does sometimes as well. But if you have like that home base to touch, you know, that plan that you can come back to, a spine, if you will, that, you know, keeps you towards like what you're trying to accomplish, you know, all things are acceptable.
Right. So we are going to continue doing this show, right? We are going to bring in a slew of interesting people that we're going to talk to. You know, it's not always going to be myself that's hosting. I know it has been me the last couple of times. It may be you hosting. It may be one of our other butchers hosting. We have a whole crew that's upstairs right now. Actually, you know what, Steven? Why don't you throw it up to you guys up in the control room? Hey, Steven, Steven Cowcoat, our director here who's doing the live switch. Alexandra was sitting next to him. She's our live producer here at Butcher Bird. It may be either one of those folks that are on camera doing this. We have a fairly deep bench, as they like to say, of talent around here, and we're going to get everybody's voices on screen.
It's nice to have a forum for people to come and talk about.
And we're going to be talking about gear. We're going to be talking about writing, storytelling. We're going to be talking about client interactions. We're going to be talking about editorial workflow. We're going to be talking about things like VR, you know, what's the impact of VR on this kind of brave new world that we're creating? We're going to be talking about a bunch of different things, but always trying to bring it back to that overarching topic of effectiveness within our digital space. As we're pushing out to YouTube, as we're pushing out to Vimeo, as we're pushing out to places that we don't even know yet what the future may bring. And we here at Butcherbird are trying to be on the forefront of what that thought looks like, how to integrate that stuff. You know, you might end up seeing a Butcherbird Presents in 360 here before long.
That's cool. That's very cool.
What does that look like?
Very
you know,
exciting.
what does that entail? Because all of it is, again, educational, collaborative, and super, super interesting. This is
community
why,
and community building.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
This
This
awesome.
is why
It's
we
great.
this is why we love this stuff. So listen, if you're one of our friends that are out there on Facebook and you have an idea or topic that you want to come in and talk to us about, hit us up. Just send us a private message through Facebook, and we'll start that conversation. Steven, I know Dan Caine that you mentioned is one of the people that we're going to talk to. I'm so excited about that.
Yes.
Like this guy has like invented tech that we use on a daily basis on our sets. You know, just coming from a position of being a DP.
He's a great working DP. She has some amazing credits and great work.
Yeah.
He created Paralinx, which was the first like zero latency wireless transmitter, video transmitter.
I can't even
and now
believe
he's
it.
developing like these anamorphic lenses, which are spectacular.
So
like
talk about
cinema.
super smart guy that that
really,
just
really great guy.
that doesn't like to ask permission, doesn't like to wait. Like if he sees a tool that he needs, he just makes it. It's such an inspiration. Anyway, without going on too long-winded, because again, I know that I can get chatty here. Please, please, please like us on Facebook. Follow us. You can hit us up on Instagram. We do all the social media stuff. Steven Moreno, cinematographer.
Check out my work, StevenMoreno.com, and my Instagram is _space.
And again, I'm Travis Stevens, and thank you one more time for joining us. And next time, who knows? We may break out of this room and get into someplace crazy interesting. Get on set or something.
Sounds fun.
Sounds fun.
Let's do it.
All right.
Thank you for watching.
Thanks, guys.